많이 느낍니다. The pathway of rose petals, to me, is a beautiful symbol of the new cycle, welcoming the new cycle. Because the new cycle is not only emerging in Korea, but all over the world. What I really wanted to say after my 15 years here is this: let heaven's design emerge. I feel the cycle is building for that here in Korea and all over the world. For my years in Joyville, for quite a few of them, I wrote myself a daily mantra. I might use it for 2-3 days or a week, but I wrote them regularly so that it was fresh and meaningful for me. But about the time that I moved to Seoul, a mantra came to me that I've been using every day since, so that's for more than 4 years. Because this mantra was so perfect, continuously. So I share it as a gift to you also. I'll say it through slowly, and then I'll elaborate a little bit on some of the words. Dwell with me in my garden of glory, assurance, and victory, with deep thankfulness, trust, surrender, and ease, and let heaven's design emerge. Dwell with me in my garden of glory, assurance, and victory, with deep thankfulness, trust, surrender, and ease, and let heaven's design emerge. So the garden has so many levels of meaning, but you can think of it as the heavenly garden, fertile with seeds and life. And who is me? Dwell with me. It is the one being. It is the Lord of love. I know you know thankfulness and you know trust. Surrender, full surrender to heaven's design brings great ease. One of the things that touched me so deeply about Martin, the leader of the emissaries for so many years, was the ease that I felt so abundant in his presence. And I knew something of the many large challenges he had to face when he took leadership suddenly after Yoranda's passing. After about 7 years after Yoranda's passing, the pressure was so great on Martin because he was carrying the load for so many that he nearly died. But the breakthrough in him and in others is what opened this great experience of ease. Essentially, he surrendered to heaven's design. So I want to give some examples of this, of what it is to surrender and let heaven's design emerge, in hopes that it will penetrate your heart more deeply and the significance of it will also land in you more deeply. This single change to surrendering to heaven's design is actually the catalyst for everything in your world and our world to transform to heaven. It is the solution to all of your problems, all of the world's problems. And it is also the only way that we can experience joy and fulfillment. So one example of how we surrender and let heaven's design emerge is the transformation that's been occurring in what we call the soul center. I think many of you know we were using the place of Kusan Sunim for quite a while, almost 2 years, until COVID. And then suddenly, center 없어요, no center. 어떻게? What shall we do? So we gathered in our house.
Yeah.
And actually that's worked quite well for over 2 years. And as it emerged that Eugen and I, well, first we had to leave our home, we thought, because the lease was finished. And we were also realizing heaven wanted us to expand our service and move to America. Until the very last minute, we thought Eugen would have to move to another place in Kusan.
Yeah.
But then a miracle happened. I won't go into the details, but now it's possible for Eugen to stay there and it to become an active center for AOL school offices and seminars and many things. I looked around what we call our living room, 너무 아름다워요, and pneumoplasm 만나요. So beautiful and so much pneumoplasm. And I could almost see many of you gathered there in different settings, different times for different things. And I could feel the joy and the inspiration and the powerful transformation that will occur in that space. To put it in more beautiful words, I could feel the garden that heaven is preparing for you. And in a way, because I'm leaving, it frees the space for something else to happen. Maybe some of you know the saying by Jesus, I go to prepare a place for you. That little story about our home and sanctuary may give you one range of understanding the meaning of that, of Jesus' words. So now I want to give you another example of letting heaven's design emerge. For probably at least a month, I had the sensing I need to go to Jeju before I leave Korea. But the reasons for my going weren't all that clear to me. It was actually during my time in Jeju that I understood the larger reasons of why heaven was saying, go. There were actually a number of magical developments during my time there, totally unexpected. And I want to share just one of them. And the essence of what happened in this one was the womb for the new cycle was initiated. And none of us knew that would happen. So it started with my invitation, and theirs too, Youngsanim and Eunhwanim, to spend Monday together, and of course we would have dinner as the ending of that. But then Sunny Nim said, how about I cook the dinner for you? I'll fix your favorite kind of samgyetang. And then Youngnan Nim had an impulse from heaven of a longing that a few women gather in communion together. So the 5 of us gathered in Ona Nim's apartment in Joyville. And Sunny had prepared an incredibly delicious meal for us. And during dinner we talked about, well, what shall we do after dinner? One idea was to share what you're excited about the new cycle. And another idea was, how about we share attunement and we begin with that? So that's what we did. And it generated a deep and intimate atmosphere so that the words we shared afterwards of our feeling of the new cycle and what we were excited about carried power and magic. And at some point we realized there is a womb building among us. It was tender, but it was powerful. So the next morning when I woke up, that experience was still very full in me. And I journaled about it. And some of the things I wrote, my whole time in Jeju couldn't have been more perfect. And I could not have imagined how beautiful and significant things would happen. And they unfolded magically as I and others let heaven's design emerge. It started with a kind of basic design that I perceived, but as others shared their sensings, it brought more magic. Much more magic than I could have planned. So I realized in all of life it works this way. We're given a part of a picture, and usually that's what I need to bring. But as we allow room for others' perceptions, a larger artistry unfolds. In a way, it's like an orchestra, but without any score. It's unfolding in the moment. So I'm going to say something that's just a few words, but it is really meaningful. And so I invite you to ponder it. We don't have to create our future. We have an important part to play in our future, but we are not the directors of it. Heaven is constantly planting seeds for our greatest future. If we move in harmony with the creative process, which is unfolding from heaven, moment by moment, then we can harvest those seeds. By then, they become rich fruit. So I wanted to share that example, and the other too, about the Soul Center, to just give a sensing of how we let heaven's design emerge. Well, the culture in Korea and in many other parts of the world doesn't operate that way. Okay, if you must, make your 5-year plan. But don't be limited by it. And from time to time, review it and see if it needs to change. If I was governed by a plan I made 5 years ago, do you think as much creativity and magic would have emerged in my life and in others? As I look back on my life, it's very clear to me that my vision is not capable of discerning the blessings that need to emerge. Actually, I want to change the word from discerning to directing. Big difference. My vision is not capable of directing. So directing is like this. Discerning is more like... So we do have an important part in discerning. But actually only heaven's vision is capable of orchestrating, directing the blessings that need to emerge. So I want to give yet one more example of heaven's design emerging. This was a fine dinner that Yujin and I, Youngsa-nim and Eunhwa-nim had a few days ago. The meal was very delicious, served course by course, very artistically prepared. We had our own room, and it was an elegant, quiet atmosphere, a perfect setting for heaven's magic to emerge. And as our conversation deepened and the pneumoplasm also deepened, what we realized and spoke was the new cycle that is emerging. We spoke about the new cycle emerging. And particularly, that it doesn't have to be laborious, a lot of work and struggle and trying. It can unfold easily and gracefully as we welcome it and follow it. So we enjoyed talking about different ways that people could be together and experience this easy, graceful unfolding of heaven's magic. And we also agreed that this is the way that heaven's power, creativity, and wisdom emerges, not through struggle. Korea's recent history has brought many blessings, but also some negative patterns that need to be overcome. One of those is trying so hard,
아주 중요한
constantly busy, and also competing with each other. 필요 안 해요. We don't need to compete. We actually do not need to compete. Anyway, my prayer is that there will be those who resolve deeply to let this pattern change. I know you're working against the mainstream current, which is papayo, coffee, papayo, coffee. But actually far greater and more powerful than the Korean pattern is heaven, the universe, and all of its creative power. So there will be times of pressure and a lot of work, but those should not be the norm. Because if those are the norm, heaven's design is blocked. A couple days ago, a friend who knows me and us quite well asked me, in the 15 years of your work here in Korea, what stands out to you as your greatest accomplishment? And I think this person was surprised by my answer. I said, it's what's happening now. Among still rather small number, there is emerging a commitment to accept responsibility for spiritual leadership, knowing that we all grow into it. Even we are still growing into it. And that commitment is emerging in a large way because we're leaving. I won't go into all of that, but again, we go to prepare a place for you. So why would I say that what's happening now, which is really quite a small seed and it's invisible mostly, why would I say that's more significant than some of our more high-profile accomplishments? Because our purpose from the beginning has been to draw forth spiritual leadership. Before Yujin and I moved to Korea, we formed a nonprofit, an international nonprofit, which is registered in the United States. And we named it Spiritual Leadership Service International. That was our purpose from the beginning. And I want to touch a little on the word international, because in Korea, it's been difficult to expand beyond Korea. So, in Korea, there are quite a few people who aspire to global leadership. But honestly, I don't think it's being done much. So I think that too is a pattern that needs to be transformed so that the perspective can move beyond Korean culture, Korean values, Korean ways, so that you're large enough to include more than just Korea. So I think this new cycle will be a wonderful opportunity to grow beyond the Korean frame. And actually, you will have more support for that than ever before, because Yujin and I are turning our attention to the larger world. And that can help you do so too. I want to just touch a bit on the larger world and what's happening in it now. Actually, I've been waiting 40 years for things to come to this point, where there are enough people who are beginning to realize that the way things have been going can never work. Before climate change brought such extreme disasters in many places, before COVID changed so much in people's lives, even before the war in Ukraine and the threat of that becoming World War III, most people thought things can continue as they have been. Even now, with all this evidence, still only a few are really ready to try another way. And I hope you are part of those few, because being ready to try another way is an important start for true spiritual leadership. Spiritual leadership and heaven's design can't only emerge when people stop doing what they have been doing. It would be better to say, stop doing things the way they have been doing them. We will all still eat and work and sleep and play and various things. But if our old ways of thinking and our old ways of feeling and all of our concerns govern us, there's no space for heaven's design. Heaven's design requires thankfulness, trust, surrender, and ease. Right. So the readiness to try another way we have sometimes described as divine navigation. Being guided moment by moment, not by our plans and our minds and our feelings, but by heaven. On Friday night, I heard that our staff wanted to know a few bullet points of what I was going to say today. I've been preparing to leave Korea, so I've been handling thousands of details most every day. And I said, 몰라요. I don't know. But I was in a place of deep trust and ease that it would come. The next morning, as I was sitting in my favorite spot, without any effort, a flow came, and much of what I'm saying today is what came through. So I hope that gives you an example of divine navigation. My prayer for you and for the new cycle is this, that there be those who commit to change so that heaven's navigation can direct. This is how humanity can transform. This is how all the world's problems can dissolve. This is how heaven can manifest on earth. All the years of my living and service have proven that deeply to me. And I look forward to seeing how you too experience more deeply the wonder of letting heaven's design emerge through you. It is actually a glorious adventure. I am with you always. You may find, as I have, when dear ones have departed, you are closer with me than ever before. Anytime your heart turns to make that connection, I am with you. And the same is true for us with all the hosts of heaven. They are really with us to bring forth heaven's design on this planet. It is God's world. Wherever you see evidence of God's world not having been distorted by humanity, you see incredible variety and beauty and artistry. Let's let that emerge through us. 정말 감사합니다. 사랑합니다. 함께합니다.